of a roller coaster. In a roller coaster, it goes up and then it goes down. And some people are scared whether it goes up and whether it goes down. But some people are brave enough to take the risk and they just enjoy the ride anyway. Similar to that of a student's grade, sometimes it is very high and sometimes it is very low. There are some who are very grade conscious and are scared if their grades are not so high. Even to other people, it's already that high. And of course, they're also terrified when their grades are very low. Well, of course, all of us have experienced this, right? Even me. Thank you. Now, you may ask, what is the relevance of these examples to our topic? Recently, Congressman Romero S. Kimball proposed that the income tax should be lowered, but some people are saying that along with the lowering of income tax, the value-added tax should be increased. Very scary, right? Because our needs will be more expensive and you can buy all the stuff that you want. But let's focus on the lowering of income taxes. Should we decrease or should we increase? Not increase. Not decrease. I'm sorry. Now, income tax reduction. Is it really a step to the right direction? Now, ladies and gentlemen, to formally start, let us all welcome our guest speakers for today. Marikina Congressman Romero S. Kimball. Finance Secretary Carlo Dominguez. NEDA Director General Arsenio Balisacan. BIR Commissioner Cesar Dulay. Owner of the Ayala lands, Jaime Zubel de Ayala. And last but not the least, a call center agent from Convergys, Ms. Marjorie Burgess. Thank you. Let us proceed. Congressman Kimball, having the ones who proposed the bill, would you mind talking about the bill?
Okay, so good afternoon. I'm very happy that we are all here to talk about this very important issue. Wait, my card keeps falling, never mind. Anyway, so to start, now more than ever with the ASEAN integration in effect, it is time for the Philippines to reach the height of the economic growth. However, in order to reach this height, we must improve on a few things, one of them being our taxation system. In the ASEAN region, the average individual income tax is 23%. The Philippines has the highest at 32%. For corporate tax, on the other hand, countries with big investment rates like Cambodia, Singapore, and Vietnam have considerably lower tax rates compared to the Philippines, which is at 30%. Now, House Bill 20 aims to put more money in the pockets of the people so they have more money to spend, as well as it aims to open the country to foreign investment. To do this, House Bill 20 aims to lower the tax brackets and also to lower the corporate income tax of 30% to 25%.
Thank you. But why do you believe that there is a need to change the current tax bracket?
As I said, the main goal of this bill is to put more money in the pockets of the people so that they may consume what they need. The bottom line today is that people do not have enough money to support themselves. Let's look at some figures. On the screen, go back. On the screen is the Tax Reform Act of 1997. This has not been changed. This is the current tax system. As you can see, it is very inefficient and outdated with the times and with the inflation rates. Look at the figures. The average Filipino worker earns 400,000 pesos a year. This means under the current tax system, next slide, under the current tax system, he will fall under 30% plus 50,000 base fare. So if you put it in a pie graph, this means that the average Filipino will spend 95,000 pesos on taxes. So on the next slide, you will see that that's 24% or 1/4 of his whole income per year. That is too much. That's why House Bill 20, on the next slide, proposes a bracket system which is more efficient. Instead of the same Filipino worker earning 400,000 pesos a year paying 95,000 pesos on taxes, he will just pay 2,500 base fare and a 20% tax on the excess of the 250,000. That's very confusing, but if we look on the next slide, this is what you will pay, and you will see the difference on the next pie gap, on the next slide. That's 8% total compared to the 24% earlier, and that gives the Filipino a lot more money to spend on what he needs. And that is important because when our people can spend more on what they need, it will be healthier for both them and the economy.
Thank you very much. This is a very informative answer. Now, Secretary Dominguez, would you like to add to what Congressman Tubo said?
I think the reduction of individual and corporate income taxes to 25% is one of the steps toward the direction of a poverty-reducing economic growth. The proposed individual income tax cut is meant to, as what Congressman Kim Bo had said, boost the purchasing power of the Filipino households, while the corporate income tax cut is meant to help our businesses to be competitive with the rest of the region, and in order for us to make our economy competitive for investments.
Thank you. How about you, General Balisacan?
Yeah, although in papers it is said that our tax system is progressive, in reality it's actually regressive. This is because much of our country's population are not able to pay taxes, and even some well-to-do families are trying to avoid it. In addition to that, it is the low-income group who are suffering because they have to pay higher taxes in proportion to their income. Which is why, with that said, I am in favor. However, we must find new sources of revenue to make up for their consequent revenue loss.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Secretary Dominguez, I would like to ask you again, where will we get the fund if the income tax is reduced?
It is true that the reduction of individual and corporate income taxes would bring down revenues, and that's why the Department of Finance had proposed a study to jack up the VAT rate from 12 to 14% to make up for the loss. However, we want to seek comments from all of you with regards to this proposal.
Thank you. Now, moving on. General Balisacan, I would like to get back to you. If the consumption tax can make up for the revenue loss from a lower income tax rate, will it solve this issue?
Well, for the consumption tax to be able to make up for the revenue loss, it would have to be increased. Meaning it will just basically cancel out the benefits that people will get from the lower tax. So basically, nothing much will change. It will not solve the issue.
But should the new sources of revenue be identified before or after lowering the tax rate?
Well, that's not really an either-or case, but it's really important to have that. Although it is hard to navigate efforts in finding new sources of revenue, we must not just ignore that. We cannot just implement this and then expect things to proceed smoothly, because we also have our emerging needs such as infrastructures, better facilities, social service, public transportation. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now, moving on again. Of course, from time to time, we have to move on. Mr. Dulay, I would like to ask you, having heard their insights, what do you think are the subsequent effects of this bill to the BIR itself, and probably to the labor force?
Frankly speaking, as the Commissioner for Internal Revenue, when we lower the income tax rate, it means we would lower the revenue to the government. And when we lower the revenue of the government, it means we need to minimize our expenditures because we cannot spend what we don't have. As we all know, in order to provide excellent public service to citizens and to provide their needs, funds are needed. Let's say, for instance, the Department of Education has an allotted budget of around 60 billion pesos for basic education purposes. Then are we going to slash half of it because the government does not have enough money for it? And secondly, we cannot sustain our GDP growth. The former Aquino administration has made significant efforts to boost our economy. And with such bill in the Congress, I don't think that we can continue what he has started.
Thank you. But if I were to dissect your answer, it seems to me that you're against the approval of the proposed bill. Would you mind sharing your thoughts? What's the reason for this?
Well, as I have mentioned earlier, I have negative thoughts on this bill simply because it will just complicate things. Let's say we push through with the tax cut. Then I suggest that in order to compensate for the expected revenue loss, we must seek new measures to compensate for it. And I agree that we can lower the income tax rate, but the effects of it will just offset the decrease in tax. So why bother changing the current tax bracket?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, so far we have talked about what this House Bill 20 is about and what are the reasons why Congressman Kimbo wants to change the current tax bracket and the possible effects to the labor force and the BIR. Now, after the information about the proposed House Bill 20, Mr. De Ayala, how do you think will this affect the expenses of your company?
Well, our company usually purchases products such as construction equipment, computer hardware and softwares, and office supplies needed for the various offices. So, and all of these things are taxed with VAT. So with VAT increasing, it will definitely increase our expenses.
So how will you budget your supposed income if the income tax is lowered and the value-added tax is increased?
What we can create a budgeted sales program, and what this will do is that we will make sure that the income we earn in the reduction of our taxes are not all spent on our expenses. Since we earn 7% in the reduction of corporate income tax and then 2% in the increase of VAT, we still have a positive 5% offset. So with this information, what we can do is we can maximize the 7% that we got from the reduction in corporate income tax and then just minimize our expenses since VAT has increased by 2%.
So how will you distribute it to your employees?
Well, firstly, with the positive 5% offset, we can use it for we can use it for things that will aid the business. So what we can do is we can help expand Ayala, so we can create new buildings, malls, condos, and other things like that. And then what we can do is we can also renovate some of the older projects that we never really had the budget and the money for. And then lastly, we can declare profit sharing, which is more commonly known as a bonus, which the employees will get once a year, and they will get a portion of the profit of the business.
Thank you very much. Now, speaking of employees, Ms. Vargas, I hope this is not rude to ask, but do you have dependents? Like, do you have a family? Do you have children?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, if I'm not mistaken, for call center agents, the income is around 18,000 to 20,000 pesos. Is that right? So, do you believe that your current income is enough to sustain your daily needs?
Well, having two dependents, I believe that my current income is really not enough for daily needs since prices of basic commodities and services are constantly rising while my salary remains the same. Now, working in the call center, like what you said, I just earn 18 to 20,000 pesos per month, not yet deducting the income tax from it. So when you really look into it, it's really hard for us to live with this kind of salary because we are always short with our finances, especially now that one of my children is already going to school.
As I have before mentioned, how will this bill affect you?
Well, I think it will be a relief for us employees since, first of all, if our income tax is decreased, it means that we will be able to get more money from the salary that we worked for. That's why, as a result, that can add to the money that we spend daily for food and for the other needs of our family.
So will it be more advantageous or disadvantageous?
Of course, it will be an advantage for us when we talk about reducing the income tax alone. But if it means an increase in the value-added tax for consumers, I think it will be more of a disadvantage for us because VAT is imposed on almost all consumer products nowadays. Like what I said earlier, the reduced tax from our income is supposed to be additional money that we will be spending on our daily needs, but with the increase in value-added tax, it would seem like the additional money that we get from the income tax reduction would just pass by our wallets because it will only be spent on the VAT of the products that we consume. Also, I agree with General Balisacan that the VAT increase will just cancel out the benefits of the income tax reduction.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. As you have heard from our discussion, there are people who oppose and are for this House Bill, for this proposed House Bill 20. But to every issue, to every problem, there's always a solution. And I believe that Finance Secretary Carla Dominguez have thought of these possible solutions. Secretary Dominguez?
I have listened to all your comments, and I think we need to conduct a more thorough study with regards to increasing the VAT rate. On another note, I think lowering the income tax rates can be pushed through, but in tandem with other compensating measures for revenue losses. First, we can eliminate some current VAT tax exemptions, like tax exemptions for cooperatives, for senior citizens, and for persons with disabilities. Second, there will be a high excise for fuel, tobacco, alcohol, sugar-sweetened drinks, and automobiles, with exemptions for buses, trucks, cargo vans, jeeps, jeepney substitutes, and special purpose vehicles. And lastly, the taxes on sugar and fatty foods will be imposed to encourage our consumers to eat and buy healthy food.
Mr. Dulay, would you like to add?
Yes, on the part of the BIR, we can implement a better and efficient way of collecting taxes. Let's take the case of Vietnam. Vietnam's corporate income tax is 22%, while that of the Philippines is 32%. But with such discrepancy, both countries were able to arrive at almost the same GDP. Why is that so? Even if the Philippines' corporate income tax is comparably higher to that of Vietnam, we were able to have the same tax collected because the system here in the Philippines is inefficient. Out of all the supposed taxpayers, only 30% are registered taxpayers, and as a resolution, we will create more concrete ways of collecting taxes by imposing stricter collection methods and improving the auditing and other related procedures and processes in the BIR agency.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to every question, there's always an answer. To every why, there's always a because. To every how, there's always a through and a by. And as I have before mentioned, to every issue, to every problem, there's always a solution. As it was discussed by Finance Secretary Dominguez and BIR Commissioner Cesar Dulay, which I believe you all have heard because you all have ears. But, of course, I would like to say it again. Some of these possible solutions are stricter implementation for better collection methods, eliminating the value-added tax exemption, having higher excise tax, the imposition of sugar tax and fatty foods. So, of course, now you have to buy healthy foods. You have no choice but to buy healthy foods. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to formally conclude this discussion, I would like now to open the table for questions from the audiences.
Hello, I'm Caleb. My question is, alright, given that there will be a reduction in the income tax, but the value-added tax will be increased by 2%, which will highly affect the prices of goods. Well, I didn't really see this a clear point, but how will the bill help out ordinary Filipino men?
Hi, thank you for your question. So, as I said earlier, oh, I can't see. As I said earlier, the ordinary Filipino earns 400,000 a year. They are the ones mostly affected by the current tax brackets because of the inefficient system. They're the ones mostly paying for the taxes because, as General Balasacan said, the well-to-do families avoid paying, and then the people in the bottom of the poverty line, they don't really pay for their taxes. So the 400,000 peso earners per year, they're the ones who, are mostly affected. So lowering their tax bracket will really greatly affect them. And then as they said, because we're trying to think of a solution, because of course, increasing the VAT is it will be unacceptable to some people. That is why we have proposed to just increase the sin tax on alcohol, cigarettes, stuff like that, so that, there will still be a positive offset. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Wait. Okay.
Hello.
Wait. Your question is answered.
Okay. Hi, I'm Linus. And my question is, are we the highest tax payers? Because from what I read, I know that we are not the highest tax payers, that we are among the high ones. But I know there are higher taxpayers like Finland. But how come like Finland or like those European countries, they do well more than us? Like, even though we pay taxes as high as them, how come they economically they do better than us?
Hi, Linus. So in the region, in the ASEAN region, the Philippines is one of the highest taxes that are paying. So comparing it to the European Union, I think although they have the high taxes and still performing great in their economy, I think that the Philippines has inefficient, as I have mentioned earlier, has an inefficient way of collecting taxes. So even though we have one of the highest tax rates in the ASEAN region, we still lack budget for it.
Thanks, you.
To add to that, if we are going to push through with increasing the excise tax, we can able to generate more revenues because currently some of our excise tax remain low for the past years compared to other countries. So if the proposed revenue enhancing measures will be approved, then that will help our economy also.
Hello, I'm Joel. I would just like to ask, for the manipulation of the taxes, the increase and decrease, how did the bill, how did the senators decide how much to deduct or add to the actual taxes? Because if it's too low, then like what said, there is a lack of budget. If it's too high, still the morality of the people would be lowered. So how did they choose how much to deduct or add?
Okay, so for the bill, as it is known, we are still in discussion about it. Not everything is final. We have come to the conclusion that the bill is okay, but then with revision. So for the hiring and lowering, like you asked, we did this we did it compared to the tax of the other countries in the ASEAN region. As I said, the average tax is 23% earlier on the slide. Right now, we are at 32, so there's a big difference. So what the bill aims to do is from the 32, decrease it to 25%. Because if we decrease it to 23, which is the average, that's too low for our government. Our government won't have any money anymore. Yeah. So to arrive at the current tax proposed brackets, we compared it to the countries in the ASEAN region.
32% is the maximum.
Sorry, miss?
32% is our maximum.
Yes, miss, 32%.
And also to add, the figure shown earlier,
Will you
previously,
show it to us? Which one?
so as you can see from the proposed brackets, these figures were because of they were adjusted from the inflation rate because the current tax rate was enacted last 1970s and 1997, and then in order to adapt to the changing times, we must change these figures to the current inflation rate in the Philippines. Thank you. To answer your question, Maria. Thank you.
I just want to follow up. You said that I'm Regina. You said that we base this the higher and lowering with other ASEAN countries. How can we make sure that it will be effective since we have different economies? We earn different salaries and
Okay. What do you call this? I'm talking so much. I'm just gonna do it really quick and then let them answer. But it wasn't compared to all countries in the region. Like for example, Singapore has a 17% tax bracket. That is because they're a first world country. We are a developing country. So what we compared ourselves to were countries that kind of had the same environment, like we're developing countries as well. Not like we didn't compare ourselves to Singapore, who they're a first world country and they have a 17% tax bracket. We didn't do that because we know that it will not work in the Philippines. So everything that we propose is calculated to fit the needs of the Philippines. Of course, we've done research about this. We've done surveys and stuff like that. The BIR did and the DOL. Thank you.
There is a question. Who will answer, Cesar?
Question is actually this portion from this question. So where did that's a proposed taxation rate? Where did they base the rates in your setting that they use?
The proposed House bill is based on what factors?
One factor would be the inflation rate here in the Philippines and also other tax rate from the ASEAN region.
From the ASEAN. What will be the average of the ASEAN region's tax rate?
Sorry, miss, what did you say? Average tax rate is 23% maximum.
For ASEAN?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So how much is the House bill's rate?
25%.
25 plus 2. Okay. So that what about the minimum wage earners? Are they taxed?
Actually, miss, for the bill, because right now they are taxed, but then the
Taxed?
yes,
How much is our minimum wage?
400. In our current
Oh
taxation
yes,
system.
Cesar will answer.
Hi, good afternoon. So with our current taxation system, the minimum wage earners, listen guys. Okay, with our current taxation system, the minimum wage earners are tax exempted here in the Philippines.
Very good. So because how much will they earn?
In a day, around 450 here in Manila, but in other
46
provinces
in Metro Manila.
and
then
lower in other provinces.
less than 400 in the provinces. Less 100.
So they are tax exempted.
Tax exempted. So the 25% increase will fall on what income bracket. What income bracket?
DOF is eyeing on higher the DOF is planning to impose higher taxes on higher income earners.
Okay. Because with the 400,000 that you mentioned, the monthly income, if we divide it, the 400,000 divided by 12 months is equivalent to 33,073 and so on per month. Okay? But usually, that will be the salary of
Low and middle income earners will benefit from it.
middle income already. Because if you take note, if call center agents are paid how much? 18 to 20, right? Now, that means they are lower than the 400,000 annual. Okay? So mostly this will be directors already.
If I may add, I think Romero Kimbo proposed a bill to mitigate the income and the gap between the poor and the rich.
How do they mitigate?
Because higher income earners were taxed more than the lower income earners.
Okay? Or question?
Just as sabi mo, it is to mitigate. Pero diba, yung new proposed plan is to, it is aimed at middle class and lower classes. So parang nag-shift yung burden sa higher class. Hindi yung parang may uniformity of taxation. So parang dapat parang kahit although mas mataas yung rate na binabayaran ng higher bracket, dapat at least proportionate siya sa lower tsaka middle class.
Progression.
Can you repeat your question again? I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand.
Kasi diba, yung proposed, yung new taxation plan is, yung new tax reform it is aimed at to middle and lower classes. So, nag-shift yung burden ng payment ng income taxes sa higher bracket. So, there is a concept na uniformity of taxation. At least, kahit mas mataas yung binabayaran ng higher bracket, it should be proportionate sa binabayaran ng middle at ng lower classes.
There's this concept in taxation that says ability to pay there. So the higher income earners has the ability more to pay taxes than that of the lower income earners. So I don't think that the burden is shifted from the lower income tax earners to the higher income tax earners.
So currently, in our current income tax rate, which is 12% for individuals and 30% for the corporate, there's not much development in the Philippines, or rather, it's a slow development. So the main purpose of House Bill 20 is to increase the income tax so that there will be more for individual Filipinos to take home. So what would be the overall effect in our economy since there will be a lower income for the government?
Well, one of the effects is if you lower the corporate tax, of course, it will open up the country to more investors. And that's a really big thing because investors, like for example, the BPO center, the call centers, they're a big part, they're a big driver of the Philippine economy. So if we lower our corporate tax rates, it will open up the country to more investors abroad, which will not only give us more money to the economy, they won't only throw more money into our economy, but they will also open up our country to employment, which is what the Philippines really needs because the Philippines has a high unemployment rate.
But then that would be more on the corporate side. But then what about for, let's say, the public side, let's say, more roads and all that?
Aside from increasing the tax rate, the Department of Finance also proposes to have other compensating measures such as higher excise tax, imposition of sugar tax and fatty food, imposition of tax on fatty foods, and the Department of Finance has already calculated it, and through that compensating measures, we can able to generate 471 billion pesos, which can be allocated for the government projects.
So is that 471 billion equivalent to the current or tax that the government is receiving, or would that be more?
Yes, because the excise tax.
Is the 471 billion equal to the current tax that the government is receiving, or is it more?
No, it is.
And the figure she said, the 400 something plus billion, is still lower than what we have, the previous reportings were shown. Because last taxable year, I think Kim Henares has stated that the BIR is able to collect 2 trillion peso in total. So the 400 billion pesos is lower.
So does that affect the current development of the Philippines?
No, as I have mentioned earlier, kasi when we lower the income tax rate, this means that lower revenue to the government, as you mentioned. And so with the lower revenue to the government, we must look for new compensating measures. And one of which is like what she said, excise tax on fatty foods, automobiles, and other stuff to compensate for the projected revenue loss of the government.
Projected loss in terms of income tax.
Income tax.
Yes. Because not all of us are accounting majors. So we're referring to the law, our income tax revenue of the government will surely be lower. Because from 32, they will make it to 25. However, to offset the loss in terms of income tax revenue, there will be higher taxes on excise tax, like on products similar to the things that you have mentioned earlier, like the sugar products, tobacco, the others, alcohols, and is that clear? Alright, so now, whatever we lost in the income, the government will also earn in terms of higher taxes on what? Yeah, so when we buy something now, it's higher than what we used to buy. Okay, so that is the explanation on offsetting, no? The loss in terms of income tax. Okay. Remember, your answers earlier are lower corporate tax, lower income tax, but higher excise tax. What do you mean by excise tax? So that everybody will have to understand. These are
Taxes that you get a privilege, so like it's like real property tax.
real properties, and then
Where you get
Excuse me, if I may clear. Excise tax could mean two things. First is what you mentioned, privilege to earn, like income tax, privilege to properties like real property tax, and also it could mean sin tax, taxes on cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, and others. Because it's also a privilege to use it.
He's not mad at you. He's not mad at you. Just like that.
Will the government be upset with if people, consumers will stop using the reserve?
so to answer your question, one of the, what do you call it? One of the factors, not main, but one of the factors of first world countries are they have a good transportation system. So that's what the people use. Take for example Singapore and Japan. In the Philippines, we actually have, it is actually showing increasing rates of cars, automobiles, because as you can see, our current transportation system is not a very good one. So for the private sector, they buy a lot of, these cars and stuff. So in the foreseeable future, we do not see a decrease in the buying of cars and automobiles, if that answers your question.
So how about tracking music? If you would impose a very high tax, this should buy. But since the automobile is increasing, so that's something. How about for the others? It will still reduce the revenue from the government.
For the automobile, Department of Finance is eyeing on the luxury cars. They will add 40% to the cars with 1.1 million to 2.1 million pesos, and 60% to cars price with 2.1 million and above.
Luxury cars are like sports cars, Maserati.
These are just the current proposed compensating measures. It's not yet final, so we don't know if they will add more or no.
Okay. Last question. Last question. No more? All right. It's a very exciting discussion. Taxes could really hurt the interest, not only of students, but of course professionals most likely, because we do pay taxes. It's not beyond sometimes our, we will say, it is beyond our capacity sometimes, because even honorarium worth 500 is taxed at 10%. So here in LaSalle, everything is taxed. They give you some, I as a teacher, if I get to earn something, even just 500, it's still taxed 10%. So sometimes we think about really taxation, just like debt becomes one of the certain things in life. The only certain things in life are death and taxation. So these two. All right. Thank you very much for